Morning, Mr. President.
Good morning, good morning. Good morning, and thank you all for being with us this morning at our meeting. We have a student speaker who we're going to ask, Ikra Muhammad from Rockville High School, to please come forward and give us a presentation.
Good morning, members of the council. My name is Ikra Muhammad, and I'm a senior at Rockville High School. I'd like to first say thank you for this opportunity to open today's council session. Not too long ago, I was sitting in the same room scribbling notes during my Summer Rise internship with Councilmember Rice. Being back here brings back such great memories. As March is recognized as Women's History Month, I'd like to dedicate this moment to a woman whose legacy will last forever. Maya Angelou will always be one of America's leading female contemporary poets. She was also an author, actor, singer-songwriter, civil rights activist, and teacher. I'd like to now read a short excerpt from one of her most influential poems to me, Still I Rise. You may write me down in history with your twisted, bitter lies. You may tread me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Does it beset you with gloom? That I walk like I have oil wells pumping in my living room? Just like the moons and the suns, with the certainty of the tides. Just like hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries. Does my hotness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard that I laugh like I have gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I rise. Her poem gives a voice to women who have been silenced and unheard all over the world. She gives us courage to believe that we can overcome and rise above all the adversities that we may face in life. I can't even begin to describe the impact her word has had on my childhood and how she's helped shape me into who I'm becoming today and who I want to be. Reading her poem gives me a sense of purpose and reaffirms that, yes, I can do whatever I set my mind to. I can only hope that you leave here today inspired, just as inspired as I am. Thank you, and happy Women's History Month.
Thank you very much. You did a great job. I did want to announce that Councilmember Nancy Navarro was not going to be here this morning. She actually has a bit of a cold and felt that she should avoid being here with us this morning. So we wish her well and hope she gets better quickly. Next, we're going to have a presentation celebrating the one-year anniversary of Silver Branch Brewing Company, and Councilmember Reamer is going to be doing that.
My esteemed colleagues from the brewery to come, and Tom Hucker as well. I am really excited to be able to present this proclamation today to Christian Lakey and Brett Robeson. Tom and I have been working together along with the council and the county government to try to support these entrepreneurs. For me, this one is a little bit personal because, well, I should start by introducing. So Christian and Brett are the entrepreneurs behind the Silver Branch Brewery, which is the third of 3 breweries in downtown Silver Spring. And together, those 3 breweries have turned Silver Spring into a brewery district that is really a tourist destination for the region. And they make incredible beer. They have taken what was once a moribund corporate office complex, where actually I worked in 1994, and it was one of the driest places that you could imagine spending time. And now it is a lively place where you will see people and lights and gathering and culture and fun. I believe that has helped attract new tenants. The owners of the buildings are behind this because they understand the connection between local breweries and brewery culture and economic development and attracting the millennial workforce and the younger workers. But Christian and I were scout dads together a number of years ago. And I used to work in restaurants, so I like to volunteer in that capacity when I have a chance. And I walked into the Scout campground cooking space, and somebody was running the show. So I walked up, and it was Christian, and I said, I haven't met you yet, I don't know. And I said, how can I help? And it was clear that Christian knew what he was doing. It was, everything was organized and structured, and we got to talking, and I learned that Christian was the head brewer at Gordon Biersch here. And I asked him if he'd ever thought about starting a brewery. He said, actually, I have. This has been something I've been thinking about for a long time. And I encouraged him to do that. And so he teamed up with Brett. And Brett, at the time, was really the kind of cultural tastemaker of Tacoma Park with Republic. It really has revitalized Tacoma Park and made it also a kind of cultural destination for a different generation to be, well, actually, it's multi-generational, highly, but I think it has brought a sense of relevance and currency to Tacoma Park that's really helpful. But Christian and Brett teamed up to start, and boy, the efforts that you have to go through as an entrepreneur. They had to knock down so many barriers to get there, and Councilmember Hucker and I were able to support them in many different challenges that they faced with the permit process, with fees from WSSC. I think they got a $40,000 bill to connect to the water main, things like that are intense. And that it was an opportunity for us to reconsider a lot of our policies and make improvements. And so we changed the zoning so that they were clearly, irrefutably allowed in the zone. We established that breweries did not have to pay those incredible hookup fees. We did things like that allowed them to have a clear shot. And boy, the entrepreneurs have walked through the door. And this week I think is your 1 year. Today's your 1 year anniversary, and they're having a celebration tonight. I'm going to try to swing by, encourage everyone to do that. But I really want to be here today. We want to thank you for bringing your vision and your hard work to the community, because it has paid off for us. It is an incredible asset to Silver Spring, and the beer is incredible. I signed up as a subscriber, so I get I paid, and I get a monthly 12-pack, and it's one of the highlights of my month.
Wow. Yeah.
It lasts a long time, believe me, if you drink in moderation.
There are 9 members on the county council.
At least 2 days.
Council member. Yeah.
So anyway, I've said more than enough. I'll invite Councilmember Hucker, and then we'll hear from the entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Hans. I think everything's been said. I just want to underscore my gratitude to Hans for all the support that he's given Silver Branch, but especially to Christian and Brett for all the leadership that they've shown, continuing to really underscore and deepen Silver Spring's brand as such a fun, hip, regional destination for millennials and people long beyond millennials. And everything Hans said is absolutely true. You've really revitalized that whole space, which was really underperforming right near the metro where we really needed it, and have really helped the whole economy of Silver Spring tremendously, and added so much fun and vigor in class. So we're really grateful for all your all the headaches that you've gone through that Hans talked about. And the 1 year anniversary is a big milestone for any restaurant. So congratulations on getting there. We want to do anything we can do in the future to help you continue to succeed. So thanks very much.
Great. So I'll read the proclamation, and then we'll have a chance to hear from our entrepreneurs. Whereas Silver Branch Brewing Company, a production brewery and tap room located in the heart of downtown Silver Spring, was opened by Christian Lakey and Brett Robeson in March 2019. And whereas, as longtime beer lovers with an appreciation for the 4 major brewing cultures, they brew an excellent multi-dimensional beer inspired by global beer traditions, experimenting and refining recipes and approaches from Belgium, the United Kingdom, Central Europe, and the Americas. And whereas the casual ambiance of their tap room evokes Gemütlichkeit, which is German. Did I do it? All right, I ought to. German for a nebulous sense of camaraderie, coziness, and sense of belonging one gets when enjoying a good time with friends, and gives the residents of Montgomery County and beyond a place to gather and create community. And whereas Silver Branch Brewing, which started as a dream to bring casual fun, and family-friendly beer culture to our community and was supported financially by numerous beer-loving investors, found a location in downtown Silver Spring adjacent to the metro station, and after much planning and coordination, opened its doors in March 2019. And whereas in the true spirit of Gemütlichkeit, Silver Branch also brews non-alcoholic drinks, including soda, coffee, and tea, and opens every weekday morning to provide libations to metro commuters, local workers, and residents in need of a cozy spot to work or meet. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland, hereby celebrates the first anniversary of Silver Branch Brewing Company, presented on this third day of March in the year 2020. Congratulations and thank you again. So you're invited to share whatever reflections you'd like to share.
Well, I won't say very much, but I did want to just say thank you again to Tom and Hans and the other people on the council who really helped us so much to get Silver Branch open. There were numerous times when it just seemed that we were 100% stuck for one reason or another. That typically had to do with an impasse with the planning department, and they just helped us sit down with them face to face and get to a place where we could move forward and both stay true to the code and yet also make our space what it needed to be. So yeah, just was so helpful to have somebody help us run interference, and we just really appreciate the desire to see something like a Silver Branch Brewing Company open up in downtown Silver Spring, which is not a traditional location for a production brewery, but we think it's doing great. People seem to love it. Even if you go outside and smell malt blowing down the street, it's just like, wow, people can actually make stuff in the downtown area, and it doesn't have to mean that you know, the whole area ends up being a rat-infested mess. So we're having a great time, and we really appreciate the community support. We're having a really fun party on Saturday, and we hope to see you there.
So the first time I ever was in this room was talking about self-distribution in Montgomery County, and that has had a massive impact on the development of a craft beer scene that has done a lot for our community, but most importantly, created a lot of jobs. So first, I want to echo what Christian said and thank these gentlemen and the entire council for all of their support and all of their help, and most importantly, for their recognition of a manufacturing industry that is based within the county that creates jobs. I'm proud to say that Silver Branch Brewing Company currently employs 42 people. A lot of which are full-time salary positions that are a livable income. So I think their recognition of the importance of this industry and what it can do for our communities has been incredible, and I'm very thankful for all of their help and support in this endeavor. So, cool.
Awesome. Thank you, Brett, and thank you, Christian. I'd like to invite my colleagues to come join us because this has truly been a team endeavor for the council and the county government. So much enthusiasm about our local breweries and wineries and even a few distilleries. So we'll all join together for a picture.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, do we have any announcements or petitions?
Yes, we do. Good morning. We have one announcement. The public hearing on Bill 620, solid waste trash, Release of balloons prohibited will be held on March 17th, 2020. We also have an announcement that the council is seeking applicants for the planning board. The deadline is March 18th, 2020 at 5 p.m. We have no petitions. We've not received any petitions this week. And we have an addendum with a couple of corrections. The approval for minutes for January 13, 28, and February 5 and 6. The approval for the minutes for January 28th is a closed session. We've also added Section 13.5. At 2 p.m. today, the council will be sitting as the Board of Health. The Board of Health will update the council on the novel coronavirus, COVID-19, and county public health planning. During the legislative session, the introduction of bills 4B, Bill 920, the Economic Development Fund, Local Business Child Care Grant Program established. We have added a lead sponsor, Councilwoman Navarro. We've also added co-sponsors, Council Members Friedson and Reamer. And the last one is a correction that the public hearing action for the supplemental appropriation to the county government's FY20 operating budget, Department of Police, will now be a public hearing, not public hearing action. That is all, Council President.
Thank you very much. We it's been distributed for our minutes for the dates of, and I have to go back to the supplemental here, the addendum, January 13th and February 5th and 6th, and the 28th also of January. January 13th, the 28th. The 28th, is that also correct, or that's not on here? The 28th, so it's January 13th, the 28th, and February 5th and 6th, 2020, and approval of the closed session minutes of January 28th, 2020, has been distributed. Unless there's any corrections, they will be approved as written. And I see no corrections, so they are approved. Thank you. The next item that we have is our consent calendar, and we need a motion to approve it. You were the so moved. You were the so moved. It's been moved by Councilmember Friedson and seconded by Councilmember Rice that we approve our consent calendar. Councilmember Joando, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I just wanted to call to our attention item B, a great report that's being released today by Tory Hall and our great Office of Legislative Oversight about the changing nature of libraries. As you all know, I've been on a whirlwind tour of our 22 libraries, 21 public and one in the correctional facility in Clarksburg, and we're about 12 of the 22 through, and I've learned a lot. And thank you for many of my colleagues that have joined along the way. This report is great. I had the chance to read it yesterday and last night, and I would encourage my colleagues to do so. There is so much that our libraries already do and are doing, but there's so much more that we can do to deliver great services as that really second place. And so this report, I think, is on the path. I look forward to my colleague, Councilmember Rice, and the Education and Culture Committee taking this up along with other issues dealing with staffing with libraries, make sure that they can really fulfill and have the resources they need to be what they are in the 21st century. So I wanted to thank OLO and just lift up this report and encourage my colleagues and the public to take a look. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Rice.
Yeah, thank you very much, and congratulations, Councilmember Joando, our chair, our lead for libraries, because he's doing a phenomenal job. And one of the reasons why, when I remember talking to him about taking on this role, I knew the great things that you were going to be able to do, and certainly highlighting and lifting up our libraries and making sure that folks understand that they're more than just a place to get books. And it really is something to which the videos that are being produced are going to educate people. And we've, Councilmember Joando and I have learned a lot more about our libraries and are starting to share that information with our greater community so they understand not only the importance of the libraries, but what kind of a resource they serve. We really want to make sure that all of our folks in the community understand that and are able to then be able to access the programs and resources that are offered there. So I really want to thank you for your leadership and your role, sir. You're doing amazing, and we really look forward to continuing to highlight for folks the great importance of our libraries in our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you. Just want to call my colleagues' attention to a project that I'm really enthusiastic about, which is item C. It's related to the transfer of property from the county to the Parks Department. For the Parks Department to proceed to renovate a local park, and among its improvements there, it will build the first outdoor mini hardscape soccer, it's not futsal, it's a soccer court. And this is a new type of athletic facility that is frankly sweeping the world. A lot of countries are recognizing that kids need a way to build skills, and that having a really predictable surface to bounce the ball from supports skills development in a way that is really important. And having a small format court enables games of 2-on-2 or 3-on-3 to really be a lot of fun. So our county has a lot of space where we could build these kinds of courts. They might occasionally be underused other hard surfaces, whether it's basketball or tennis or other types of hard surfaces in a place where really the demand is for soccer, or it might be just simply a new facility. I think it's very applicable to the schools. I think a lot of schools would benefit from having this type of facility. So I wanted to give a shout out to the community members who proposed this for this location, and express appreciation to the Parks Department for pushing through and embracing it. And I'm hopeful that this will be the first of what will be many to come, and this will be a real addition to our athletic facilities in the county. Thanks.
Thank you. No other lights are on. It has been moved and seconded that we approve our consent calendar. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous by those present. The next item that we have is introduction of bills. The first one is Bill 8-20, bicycles and e-scooters. Oh, I'm sorry. I did miss that one. And Mike Covio, if he's here, I gave him a hard time last time. And we need a motion to approve the confirmation of county executive's appointee as director, Department of Finance, Michael Covio.
So moved.
It's been moved by Councilmember Albernaz and seconded by Vice President Hucker. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous by those present. And though Mike is not in the room, please tell him we would have given him a standing ovation if he were here. I know that was a major discussion last week. Congratulations to Mike. Yeah. Next is introduction of bills. The first one is Bill 820, bicycles and e-scooters, operating requirements and registration. I am the lead sponsor, and co-sponsor is Councilmember Albernaz. The public hearing is scheduled for March 24th at 1:30 p.m. And Councilmember Albernaz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate your introduction of this bill. I'm happy to co-sponsor it. I have made my position on these particular mini mobile devices known. While there are certainly benefits to them, I'm also increasingly concerned that they have been introduced, not so much in Montgomery County. I actually do appreciate the thoughtful approach in which DOT has rolled out these particular mobile devices, but I am concerned that we are getting too far ahead of ourselves in terms of how to categorize them. We have heard repeatedly from our disability community, from our senior community, and a variety of other communities that are disproportionately impacted by these mobile devices that they are causing danger and concern, and we want to ensure safety and security. So I believe this is a common sense approach to help ensure that we regulate these in a responsible fashion. So I'm happy to co-sponsor.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Rice.
Well, thank you very much to both you, Council President, and Chair Albornoz. Let me just say that I've been incredibly concerned about these devices since the very beginning, seeing in other states and jurisdictions where they've been rolled out to where they continue to provide challenges for people with mobility issues, primarily those that are seniors, as well as people with differing abilities. And so I certainly want to see us do this. I'd also love to see us do more and require that these scooters actually be docked. Because it still prevents a person from safe egress in a lot of areas, and even a 48-hour window still does not make sure that a person who's trying to get to and from home, to and from a store, whatever the case may be, just going around their block, can safely get around. And so it's unfortunate that a few irresponsible people who aren't thinking about anyone beyond themselves, who lay these down. And I've got pictures on my phone that I continue to send to DOT about these violations that continue, is incredibly troubling. So I really thank you for taking what I believe is the first step in us really making sure that these devices are not impeding on our public's ability to use our public walkways, and especially for our people with differing abilities. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I did want to note that Michael Covio did just come into the room. You actually know when to get here because you've already been approved. We're going to give you a standing ovation, but you weren't here to get it. So anyhow, congratulations, Mike. And then you also know when to leave. You're good. You're good. The next item is Bill 920, Economic Development Fund, the Local Business Child Care Grant Program since established. The lead sponsor is Councilmember Albornoz. The co-sponsor is Councilmember Friedson. And we're going to hear from Councilmember Albornoz, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also want to acknowledge and thank my colleague, Councilmember Navarro, for being the other co-lead sponsor of this bill. We've been hearing repeatedly from our business community that one of the challenges that we have in making sure that we attract and retain businesses here in Montgomery County is ensuring that we have the appropriate talent pool. And I really want to thank our Montgomery Chamber of Commerce, as well as Montgomery Moving Forward, for working with us to establish what I believe is a creative approach to address both helping to identify and retain talent here in Montgomery County and to be competitive within our region and nationally, but also address the needs of a population that is trying to access child care. We know child care is a huge issue for people at all income levels, and we feel that marrying these two issues through this bill will have great effect. The bill would be a matching grant program up to $2,500, and businesses with 50 or fewer employees would be eligible. It's important to note that this is available for both for-profit and nonprofit organizations. Nonprofits are also competing for talent in and across the region as we have growing needs in our community. So I am excited about the opportunity to marry both of these issues and help in an important way address economic development opportunities in the county. And I want to thank Council Members Katz, Friedson, and Reamer for their co-sponsoring of this bill as well. And we look forward to the public hearing as we move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you, Council President Katz. Just wanted to thank and congratulate Councilmember Albornoz for an innovative proposal. I think it solves two challenges that we face. One, we have to help and support our employers to help them grow their businesses, and we need to help make the cost of child care more affordable. We have one of the most expensive child care costs in the United States, and that's a huge challenge that really holds back not only our families, but also our businesses and our economy. And this is a really thoughtful approach to be able to begin to tackle that, and I am proud to be a co-sponsor of this bill. Look forward to working on it together and look forward to it being part of our comprehensive work to help grow our economy, to support our workers, to make child care in Montgomery County more accessible and more affordable for more families, and to continue to make Montgomery County an attractive place for businesses to locate and employees to want to work. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Council Vice President Hucker.
Just wanted to thank you, Councilmember Albornoz, for your leadership and ask to be added as a co-sponsor.
Thank you. Next is Bill 1020, Property Tax Credit, Energy and Environmental Design, Eligibility Criteria and Amounts of Credit. The lead sponsors are Councilmember Friedson and Reamer. The co-sponsor is me, and the public hearing is scheduled for March 31st, 2020 at 1:30 p.m. And Councilmember Friedson would like to speak.
Thank you, Council President Katz, for your co-sponsorship, and I particularly want to thank Councilmember Reamer for working with us and co-leading this really important legislation. This is in the aftermath of a really in-depth and terrific briefing that we had from the Department of Environmental Protection and the stakeholder work group that has been addressing these issues on October the 15th, and thank you to Councilmember Hucker for organizing that conversation. This bill is about turning climate rhetoric into real results. And it's an approach that was put forward, recommended 8 months ago by a DEP-led stakeholder work group of environmental advocates, businesses, and subject matter experts. It can help us significantly reduce energy use in commercial buildings in our county, which accounted for 26% of all carbon emissions during the county's last greenhouse gas emission survey in 2015. This is a huge area of tremendous need. And it can help us now. And it can help us by collaborating with the private sector, not by combating with it. It's time to put these consensus changes in place. We don't have to wait for solutions to our climate crisis, especially when we have solutions that have literally been handed to us by the hard work of all the stakeholders who are part of this work group. This legislation would significantly improve the county's existing green building property tax incentive program for commercial properties, and according to the work group, will make a significant impact. Just a few highlights of some of the changes. For the first time, we'd be prioritizing actual energy reduction for new buildings, at least a 10% reduction above and beyond the baseline requirement in our county's building code. That's a significant change and improvement. And for existing buildings, demonstrated energy reductions over a 12-month period, according to the EPA's Energy Star measurement system. The bill would ensure that the county is giving property tax credits only to buildings that are going above and beyond what's already required in the county's existing building code. Under the county's current system, building owners can get property tax credits for energy reduction work that's already required by the county's International Green Construction Code standards that the previous council adopted in 2017. The current annual property tax credit cap for these projects has been reached in 2016, 2017, and 2018, so we know that there are projects that would move forward, that would help to address our climate challenges that aren't being pursued because we haven't made the appropriate changes. This legislation would keep the $5 million annual property tax credit cap for all energy reduction projects in existing buildings. However, it would remove the cap for all new energy projects in new buildings, with the obvious rationale that any new building in our county is adding to our overall property tax base, meaning that any credit against that property tax would not be a loss to county revenues. I look forward to working with my colleagues, the work group stakeholders, DEP, and the executive branch to ensure that we implement the recommendations of the work group so our private sector partners have a vastly improved option for making real energy reductions so we can make real progress on our climate goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you. Appreciate Councilmember Friedson for spending the time to really think this through and showing the leadership to bring it forward. I am really proud to co-lead with you. We heard about this approach last spring, and a task force had been convened. It included a lot of building owners and a lot of efficiency experts, and they came together and they recommended a new strategy for the county. And frankly, we were anticipating that the executive branch would recommend taking action. And we waited, and we waited, and we're still waiting. So we're moving forward because we need to move forward. We don't have time to wait. What I love about this proposal is that it is very flexible, and it will change with the improvements in the green building code over time. The county has embraced the International Green Building Code, which is a gold standard, although we are still on an older green building code and will need to get into the new green building code. But this credit will always be available for buildings that exceed it. So as the green building code tightens or strengthens, the credit also rises in its, you have to do more in order to get the credit. So that is a smart policy. We don't have to continually revise it as we improve our building standards. What I want to say is we know that our buildings, whether our homes or our offices, are about 40% of our county's energy and emissions use. And another 40% is our transportation. This is going to help us improve the efficiency of our building sector so that it uses less energy and therefore produces less emissions from the grid. I think we also need to recognize that it's going to take a long time to retrofit existing building stock in this county, whether that's privately owned houses or commercial office buildings or apartment buildings. That's a multi-decade process, and this will help. But we have to be part of the solution that changes the power grid that buildings run from. So a key solution is what Councilmember Friedson has brought to us, which is reducing the demand on the grid, and that's what this will do. But we also have to clean up the grid. And the only way for us to clean up the grid is to be part of the solution that substitutes coal-generated energy and gas-generated energy with solar and wind-generated energy. And Montgomery County does not really have a location for wind. We really only have a location for solar. And we have to be part of the solar solution. And we're going to have a public hearing tonight about how to be part of the solution for cleaning up the grid. And a lot of people have said, why don't you focus on rooftops and existing buildings? That's what we're doing here. We will put in place a stretch goal for buildings. But it's only a piece of a solution. And the bottom line is it's impossible to clean up the grid without using land for solar that is in Montgomery County and around the state, and that's going to mean some farmland. So if we're committed to clean up the grid, we're going to have to tackle that issue. And that is also what I have proposed. So I apologize to my colleague for stealing the soapbox to comment on a related issue, but these are related issues, and they really are. It's important for us to see how everything fits together. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is calls for bills for final reading. This is Bill 3319, the Police Community Policing Bill. The Public Safety Committee recommends enactments with amendments. The Public Safety met, and it was only two of us there. Council Vice President Hucker was doing county business in Annapolis, I believe, the day that we voted. But the committee recommended 2-0 that the council enact Bill 3319 with several amendments, which were suggested by the sponsor of the legislation. It deleted the language requiring Montgomery County Police Department to maintain and expand the school resource officer program. It required the police department to designate a liaison to vulnerable populations. It added language requiring the police department to increase officer knowledge of the county's diverse population. It required Montgomery County Police to work with the county departments, agencies, and community-based organizations to incorporate mental health and positive youth development initiatives. It required the Montgomery County Police Department to report on the department's training standards and practices. It requires the police department to report on all uses of force that result in an injury if the injury occurred as a direct result of an officer's actions. Expands the requirements for the police department to report on demographic information, to include information voluntarily provided by officers. It required the police department to report on civil complaints regarding verbal offenses. It requires Montgomery County Police Department to report the number of calls for service involving substance abuse or mental health issues, and it requires the police department to report on demographic information about detainees. And it should be noted that Council members Navarro and Rice both participated in the committee discussion. And with that, Councilmember Rice, please.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm going to get a little bit personal today because, you know, this bill represents a lot of what a lot of us in communities of color have been talking about for a very long time. And I find it offensive and objectionable when people who don't look like me, who don't have the same experiences as me, want to tell me what I should do when it comes to shaping the relationship that I think I need to have between my community and my police officers. I want to be very clear. There has been a rich history of challenges between people of color and our police department for a very long time, but it's rooted much larger than our police department. It's actually rooted in the fact of our country as a whole in terms of systemic racism and injustice that continue to exist. And the police were merely a tool used by people of power to make those kinds of things happen, shaping and enforcing policies that we knew were racist, that were designed to keep people of color down. But a lot has changed. By advocacy, by people crusading to make differences, when I look at the time in which I was stopped as a young black man driving home from work and asked why I had a pager and was asked where I was going and didn't do anything wrong, that was here in Montgomery County, right on Randolph Road. And I will tell you that the differences are that we don't have as many of those incidents happening today because of the work of people like myself and my parents, people like the NAACP and Casa de Maryland, and others who continue to advocate to make sure that folks understand that those kinds of situations will not be tolerated. So when a person says, well, we don't need a community policing bill, we just need to stamp down on the police, I say you're completely wrong and you just don't get it. You don't get the fact that I want to feel protected in my neighborhood. I want to feel as though I can call the police and have them answer and protect me and my family if need be. I want to make sure that my children are safe. I want to make sure that they can trust and call the police if something happened. I want to make sure that my daughter, when she goes off to college, can make sure that if somebody did something to her, she knows that she can call a police officer and they can be there for her. That's what community policing is about. It is not about locking up people. It is not about arresting people. It is turning the tide and making a difference so that we say our police work with us and for us. So stop it, people who are trying to wedge a divide between police and people of color. We need them just as much as white people do. That's the reality. So I'm very happy that this bill is passed. There's still so much more work that needs to be done. But I just want to close by saying thank you. Thank you to the officers who showed up when I had a gun pointed to my head and got robbed in front of Howard University. Thank you to the police officers who showed up when we actually had an explosive device that was detonated in front of my house. Thank you to the police officers who showed up at an accident that I was in where I almost lost my life and they were the first people to respond to the scene. Thank you to my cousin who lays his life on the line in Prince George's County as a police officer each and every day and doesn't know if he's going to go home to his 2 daughters. The reality is that there is a way we can make this work for all of us. And so for those people who want to say that it's not, I tell them, you ain't talked to the right people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Council Member. Well, we're going to, Councilmember Joando, if someone has a, Councilmember, is your light on? Sure. Councilmember Joando.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I appreciate my colleagues putting this bill forward. I co-sponsored the bill initially because there are many good things in it, and I'm a proponent of community policing done right. I think it's like 21st century policing I've talked about before. It's a work in progress in what it means and what we track and what we prioritize and the data we use. And many of the provisions in this bill that call for us to track some of that data in a better way and get more updated reporting are things that I'm supportive of. I've obviously had very similar experiences with law enforcement. I've had an unfortunate viral moment last year where I was pulled over by our state police and profiled, and I've talked about that extensively. And I've talked about the need to have co-production of public safety, where our police are working with community members, particularly in communities of color, in immigrant communities, to develop a public safety plan that prioritizes safety for both people and that allows people to be respected on both sides. And that's why I signed on to this bill, because I wanted to be a part of that solution and try to work with my colleagues. I've also expressed my concern with the school resource officer provision. I'm glad that the committee worked, and I want to thank the committee for working to pull that out so that we can have a more fulsome discussion in our joint committee, Education, Culture, Public Safety, about the provisions and what's going on with that program, and have that public discussion. I think that I worked with Councilmember Reamer on the Police Advisory Commission, and I appreciate his work on that. We passed the LEAD Act, my first bill, requiring independent investigations for police-involved shootings. We've sent several requests for other information to our police department when we've had some incidences over the last year that were not productive. And I commissioned 2 OLO studies on a police data that I'm waiting for those results to come back here in the next month. And so at this point, in light of every single person who came to testify in the public hearing being against this bill, I think it would be prudent to pause and get some of this data back, some of these requests, before we move forward. And I fully appreciate Councilmember Rice and Councilmember Navarro, their effort here, and I think we can move forward with a productive community policing relationship. But at this time, I think it would be prudent to pause. It's not a motion, but I would support a motion.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Reamer.
Okay. Well, I wanted to address, first of all, I just wanted to say Councilmember Rice's comments are powerful. And I see what you are saying, and you and I have worked together over the years on the SRO issue, and I know your personal passion for that, and it was helpful to hear you express some of the connections around this issue. I think you have a profound respect for our public safety mission and the people who do that work, and I know that is a respect that I share, and I think we all share. And again, it was helpful to hear how that relates to your own personal experience, and your desire to have our police officers live in the hearts of our community and our residents and our young people, and to try to heal that, because, as you said, the men and women that put on those uniforms every day are doing it for a love of young people and the people who live here, and that's what gets them motivated, and that's why they put in those hours and take those risks. And so, I have always, I just have had a lot of respect for that over the years, and it has colored my work in different ways. And at the same time, I have found the issue of SROs to be a very challenging one. Now that I'm the parent of a middle schooler, I see, I have a little bit of a different perspective on what that age is all about. And through the course of legislating on this bill, I have really, my views have evolved. And I have been really, recently I had a chance to visit Einstein High School. I was encouraged by some very close friends whose son is in the band. And there's an SRO at Einstein who is probably one of the most beloved members of the education, the educator community or the personnel of the high school. And I went and I had a chance to meet him, and I might even have written a proclamation for them. And I saw him playing saxophone in the band. It was really a poignant experience. But I also think about my own life and the times that I've needed help, and that I've been able to to reach out and find somebody who could be there for me in a difficult moment. And I think that it would be hard for me to have done that with a police officer. I think it would have been easier for me to do that with someone who was a little less, there wasn't a uniform and a badge. It was somebody who was a counselor, who was a less, there seemed to be less of a barrier between us. I understand that your goal is to reduce that barrier. I also have concluded that that is very difficult, that the officers have to work really, really, really hard to try to compensate for the fact that they are wearing a uniform and a badge. And so my feeling at this point is that the most effective way to meet the needs of kids that are at risk, that need us to provide an adult that they can dialogue with to help get help, is with adults who come from a different discipline. And that we should really be thinking about police officers as emergency response, as, there's a gun at the school, we need an officer there immediately. Because those incidents are real. Those happen. We've had those this year. But how do you penetrate that network of children that can relay that concern to you? What's the most effective way to be a trusted ambassador or emissary to children? Police officers can do that work. I'm not denying that they can. But I also think that counselors and other mental health professionals may be more effective in that work. So I certainly don't think we want to pursue, and we'll get into this later, SROs at the middle school level. But relating to this specific bill, I have to say I always struggled with this bill because as the council was working on a thoughtful, strategic way to engage the community in making police policy, this bill emerged and sought to establish a policy issue that was kind of at the core of what the Police Community Advisory Board was about, which is what is community policing. So I just didn't really see it felt like it was creating a friction point with the community engagement that we were trying to foster. And so I've not been enthusiastic about this bill. And I agree with Council Member Jawando that I don't think there's any harm in pausing on it, and I think that it would be helpful to get a chance for this commission to get up and running and to weigh in on some of these questions. And so, anyway, some comments that I just wanted to make. Thank you.
Councilmember Albornoz.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I have been very appreciative of the conversations we've had over the last year. They have been enlightening, they have been educational, they have been, in my opinion, productive. Because we are trying to move forward and ensure trust between our community and our law enforcement officials. And I have appreciated the testimony that I've heard. I've also appreciated the deliberations we've had privately among our colleagues as well. But I never envisioned this bill in isolation. I envisioned this bill as part of a broader plan to, moving forward, help ensure that we continue to build on the strong foundation that we have here in Montgomery County and strengthen it in terms of that trust between our community and our law enforcement officials. And it's also become clear to me, and I knew this inherently, but having had the opportunity to travel and hear testimony, community policing means very different things to different people. depending on where you live and your personal experiences and your background. And so I very much appreciated Councilmember Navarro's effort to try and help provide some context and background and a baseline for us to be able to move forward from. And community policing at its best helps ensure not just prevention, not just helps ensure that people feel safe within their communities, but is part of this really important and complex ecosystem in which we're supporting each other as communities. And so I appreciated the amendments that were proposed, which I felt addressed some of the issues that were brought forward during the public testimony, but do feel it's important for us to continue to be able to move forward in a positive direction. And I think this bill is an important component of this broader strategy to move in that direction. And I've said this publicly during our individual sessions with regards to the school resource officer issue. I provide a perspective from having worked in a department who provided more after-school programs than any other agency in Montgomery County. And so I've had extensive interaction with both our school system, our school resource officers, and have seen the training that they go through, have interacted with most of them personally, and have seen firsthand that the school resource officer is intended to be more of a resource than an officer. And that the experiences that I've seen, and that, and I in particular want to acknowledge our street outreach network, led by Luis Cardona, within our Department of Health and Human Services, that works tirelessly to advocate and provide support services for our youth. But I think our school resource officers provide an important resource. And I've seen firsthand the interaction that they've had with youth. And I have looked on with horror as I've seen story after story at the national level of police officers who clearly were not equipped and should not have been in the schools that they were located in. But I have not seen that. In fact, quite the opposite here in Montgomery County. The interactions I've seen, again, have been particularly positive and important to that ecosystem. So I continue to support this bill because I think that it's important as part of this broader strategy for us to be able to move forward, acknowledging that the work is by no means done and that it needs to continue, and we will continue to strive to work in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank the sponsors of the bill, Councilmembers Rice and Navarro. And Councilmember Rice, thank you for sharing your personal story. It's important. I'm sorry that you've been a victim in certain respects. I'm appreciative that you've had good relationships with law enforcement when you've needed their help. And ultimately, that's what we're all trying to figure out here, how everybody in our community receives the support that they need when they are victimized. Whatever that victimization looks like, whether it's a serious crime, a petty crime, a hate crime. And in this last year, in this last 14 months, we've been doing a lot of work towards that. And that's, I think, the thing to take away, that this bill has been built upon and is part of a series of bills that we've undertaken here in the last year. You know, we started with the Law Enforcement Trust Act, sponsored by Councilmember Jawando. You know, we also moved to the Police Advisory Commission, sponsored by Councilmember Reamer, and then the Racial Equity and Social Justice Act by Councilmember Navarro, which isn't aimed specifically at law enforcement, but as we know, that has a large scope, and it will certainly take our law enforcement and policing into account once that is up and running. And I share that background because we've been doing this work, and I think it's important that we take some time to figure out how those previously passed and enacted pieces of legislation will help contribute to making sure that all 1.1 million residents of Montgomery County feel safe and secure. We've had robust conversations on what that is, what that looks like, and how we do it. And I'd like to see the process work itself out. We have a 13-person police advisory commission that has not yet been established, but for a police advisory commission to not be part of a community policing bill, I think is a misstep, a missed opportunity. And to simply give pause on this piece of legislation to see what the social justice and racial equity impact is, to hear what the members of the Police Advisory Commission think, I think are really important to making sure that this legislation, which I am a co-sponsor of, is the best it can be. And that is why I think that we need to pause, quite simply, because we have policies and procedures in place and a commission that's waiting to come on board that will only make this piece of legislation better. And what I don't want to happen is the passing of legislation after legislation, all of which is good well intended, but missing the pieces that have come before it that can make it even stronger. And so it's with that intention that I'd like to make a motion to table this piece of legislation at this point in time.
It's been moved to table, and it was seconded by it was moved to table by Councilmember Glass, seconded by Councilmember Jawando, that we table this legislation. We're going to continue on. We have some other people. Do you want to speak to the table? I understand that, but we have somebody that might want to speak to the motion. You want to okay. It's been moved to table the motion. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That is Councilmember Vice President Hucker, Councilmember Reamer, Councilmember Jawando, and Councilmember Glass. All those who are opposed to tabling, please raise your hand. That is Councilmember Albornoz, Councilmember Rice, Councilmember Friedson, and Councilmember Katz. So it's a 4-4 vote, so that means that it does not pass to table. But I'm also fairly good at math. I went to Montgomery County Public Schools, and that means we don't have 5 votes. But now Councilmember Rice would like to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move to table this bill until the appropriate time.
Say it again, please.
I'd like to move to table the bill until the appropriate time.
All right. It's been moved to table the bill to the appropriate time. Is there a second? It's been seconded by Councilmember Albornoz that we table to the appropriate time. And I do believe that should be noted that Councilmember Navarro, who is watching, I can tell you, she is watching at home, who is the sponsor of the bill, I believe would be supportive of that as well. All those in favor of tabling it till the appropriate time, please raise your hand. And that carries unanimously by those present. Thank you very much. We will table it till the appropriate time, which I don't know. We'll have to announce when that is. Could be next week. The next item that we have, we're a little early on this. This is the work session for FY21 through 26, the Capital Improvement Program. Do you think we should take a 20-minute recess and to make certain that the appropriate departments are here? We should. So we're going to take literally a 20-minute recess until the appropriate departments are here so that we can continue our work. Thank you very much. We're in recess.